Zuwena was just a simple tailor in Nairobi, working long hours in her small roadside shop, stitching clothes to make a living. She didn't have much, but her heart was big, full of hope and love. That's when she met Malik. He was charming, full of dreams, always talking about a bright future. He wanted to go to school, start a business, make a name for himself. Zuwena believed in him, maybe too much. She gave him everything she had, her time, her money, even skipped meals so he could eat better and focus on his studies. When he couldn't pay rent, she covered it. When he needed books, she stitched clothes all night just to afford them. Everyone warned her. "You're doing too much," they said. "He's not the one." But love can be blind, and Zuwena saw only the good in him. What she didn't know was that Malik had another plan, one that didn't include her. While she was sewing late into the night, he was whispering sweet words to someone else. While she dreamed of their future, he was building his own, without her in it. But Zuwena didn't see the signs. Not yet. She thought she was building a life with him. She thought her sacrifices were for their future. But the truth? She was just a stepping stone, a quiet chapter in a story he was writing for someone else. And soon, everything she gave would come back to break her. After everything she had done for him, Zuwena never imagined Malik would leave her, but he did. And not just that, he left her for someone rich, someone with a powerful last name and a lifestyle Zuwena could never give. Her name was Afia, the daughter of a well-known businessman from Kigali. She had everything: money, beauty, and connections. And now, she had Malik too. One day, Malik came home acting strange, distant, cold. He didn't even look her in the eyes. Then, just like that, he told her it was over. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. He'd already moved out, already moved on. And the worst part? He left her with nothing. No house, no money, no answers, just her clothes in a trash bag and a heart full of pain. Not long after, Zuwena saw the wedding photos online. It wasn't just any wedding. It was a huge, flashy event, trending on social media, covered in gossip blogs. Everyone was talking about the beautiful Afia and her self-made husband Malik. But no one knew the truth. No one knew that the man in the designer suit was standing there because a woman like Zuwena had starved and sacrificed to build him up. Zuwena watched the videos in silence, standing across the street from their mansion. She could see the lights, hear the music, even smell the food. People laughed and danced inside. And there she was, outside, alone, carrying her whole life in one torn bag. No one asked where the woman before the bride had gone. No one asked who helped Malik become the man he was pretending to be. She didn't cry in front of the mansion. Her tears had already dried. Her heart was broken, yes, but her spirit hadn't died. Not yet. Even as people whispered, even as she walked away with nowhere to go, Zuwena held her head high. She had nothing, but she was not nothing. The betrayal cut deep. Not because he left, but because he used her. Because he made her believe they were building something together. Because he took her loyalty, her kindness, her love, and traded it all for gold. Zuwena could have cursed him. She could have screamed, begged, made a scene, but she didn't. She simply walked away from the gates of the life she was supposed to share and into the darkness with nothing but her name and her strength. No one knew that the woman standing on that empty road, with dust on her shoes and sorrow in her chest, would one day shine brighter than the bride. But for now, Zuwena had one choice: survive, and she would, because pain like that doesn't break a woman like her. It builds her. Zuwena had nothing. No home, no family nearby, no one to call. After Malik left her, the little life she had built crumbled overnight. She tried staying with a friend for a few days, but space was tight. Eventually, she ended up on her own. Some nights, she slept at bus stations, using her shawl as a blanket. Other nights, she stayed awake till morning just to stay safe. She kept her sewing kit with her, a needle, a few threads, some old fabric pieces. During the day, she would find a quiet corner, sit under a tree or behind a market stall, and stitch small items by hand. Sometimes it was a dress, other times just repairs, hemming trousers or fixing torn pockets. It didn't pay much, but it was something. Then she started making jewelry from seashells and beads she found near the beach in Lamu. She would sit on the sand, stringing pieces together with careful fingers. It wasn't perfect, but tourists liked it. Unique, they said. She smiled, and sold each piece with quiet pride. Every coin went into food, candles, and fabric. Zuwena didn't complain. She didn't beg. People saw her sleeping near the bus stop and laughed. Some called her the girl who got dumped for money. Others looked right past her, like she was invisible. But she didn't let it break her. Her eyes still had that quiet fire. Deep inside, she kept telling herself, they took everything, but they didn't take me. At night, she stitched clothes by candlelight, using second-hand cloth and broken zippers. Her hands moved slowly, but her mind moved faster. She dreamed of designs, patterns, and colors. She imagined women wearing her dresses and feeling powerful. She imagined her own boutique, warm lights, mirrors, soft music, her name on the door. People mocked her hustle. Tailoring won't feed you, they said. Go find a real job. But Zuwena didn't listen. She knew pain too well now, and she had made a decision. She was going to use it. Every tear, every betrayal, every hungry night, she was turning it all into fuel. There were days she wanted to give up, days her stomach ached from hunger. Nights she sat in silence staring at the moon, asking, why me? But every morning, she got up again. She didn't need anyone's pity. What she needed was a chance, and she was going to create it herself. Zuwena didn't have a home, but she had hope. And sometimes, that's even more powerful. She didn't know it yet, but this chapter, the hardest one, was also the beginning of something incredible. The world had counted her out, but she was just getting started. Zuwena was sitting on the beach in Lamu, just like any other day, quietly sewing under the shade of a palm tree. She had a small mat laid out with the handmade jewelry she created and a few dresses she had stitched from scraps. Her work was colourful, full of heart, but she never expected much, just enough to buy food and thread for the next day. That day, a tourist stopped by, a young woman with a big camera and kind eyes. She watched Zuwena work for a while, then started asking questions. Did you make all this? She asked, holding up a bright blue dress. Zuwena nodded shyly. The tourist was amazed. Your hands are magic, she said. She bought 2 dresses and some bracelets, gave Zuwena a warm hug, and walked away. What Zuwena didn't know was that the tourist took a photo of her, sitting on the sand, sewing with focus and pride, and posted it online with a caption that read, met a homeless woman in Lamu who stitches magic. Her name is Zuwena. Somebody help her shine. The post went viral within hours. People across Kenya, then Africa, started sharing it. The photo reached fashion bloggers, designers, and celebrities. Soon, Zuwena's old phone wouldn't stop ringing. Can I order a dress? Do you ship to Lagos? We want your pieces in our boutique in Johannesburg. Messages came pouring in, from Accra to Addis Ababa. Everyone wanted a piece of what she made. At first, Zuwena couldn't believe it. She thought it was a mistake. But when the orders kept coming, she knew something had changed. Her hands, once blistered and tired from survival, were now in high demand. Her little beach mat became a production space. She bought better needles, more fabric, even a used sewing machine from a local market. She worked day and night, often forgetting to eat, pouring her heart into every piece. Each dress wasn't just a product. It was a story, her story. She stitched in silence, but her hands were speaking loudly now. She didn't need fancy labels or big shops. People wanted her because her clothes had soul, pain, beauty, struggle, strength, all sewn into every seam. A local reporter found her, then a TV crew. Soon magazines were calling her the Queen of Handmade Hope. She was still living small, in a tiny rented room, but everything around her was growing fast. She didn't chase fame. Fame found her, and all it took was one stranger who saw her. Zuwena didn't forget where she came from. She still stitched with the same passion, still greeted customers with warmth and humility. But now, she knew one thing for sure. The world had finally seen her. Not just the pain, not just the betrayal, but the power, the fire, the magic in her hands. One post changed everything. But Zuwena, she had been ready long before the world noticed. Zuwena didn't waste a single coin. Every time someone bought a dress or bracelet, she put the money right back into her dream. She didn't rush to buy fancy clothes or a new phone. Instead, she bought better fabric, more thread, and stronger needles. She saved little by little, even when it meant skipping meals or sleeping fewer hours. She had a vision now, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. Her first big step was renting a small wooden stall near the beach. It wasn't much, just a simple space with a curtained door and a handmade sign that read, Zuwena style, but it was hers. She cleaned it up, decorated it with shells and colourful cloth, and started putting her best dresses on display. Tourists kept coming. Locals began to take notice too. The name Zuwena started to spread. She kept working hard, sewing every day, sometimes till midnight. When the stall became too small for all the orders, she rented a bigger place in town, a real boutique, with mirrors, changing rooms, and soft music playing in the background. She painted the walls in warm colours, hung photos of her earliest designs, and placed a small golden sign on the door, stitched in strength. From there, things moved fast. She hired 2 women who had also been struggling, just like she once had. She trained them, paid them fairly, and made sure they were proud of their work. Slowly, her team grew. Her brand grew. Soon, fashion bloggers were tagging her. Celebrities started wearing her dresses on red carpet. Her email was full of invitations to fashion shows and interviews. In just 3 years, Zuwena Styles had become one of the most talked about fashion brands in Africa. Her clothes were being worn from Accra to Cape Town, from Nairobi to Lagos. Each piece told a story, not just of beauty, but of survival, of strength, of rising from nothing. Then came the day she got the email. You've been named one of Africa's top 30 under 30. Zuwena stared at the screen for a long time, not sure whether to cry or laugh. Her name was now next to tech founders, musicians, and business leaders. A woman who once stitched by candlelight on the street was now recognized across the continent. But through it all, Zuwena stayed grounded. She still walked barefoot on the beach sometimes, still visited the old bus stop where she once slept, still whispered thank you every time she turned on the lights in her studio. Her empire wasn't built with luck. It was built stitch by stitch, heartbreak by heartbreak, hope by hope. And it was just the beginning. Because Zuwena wasn't just building a fashion brand, she was building a legacy, one that started in pain, but would end in power. It was a normal afternoon at Zuwena's design studio. She was going through fabric samples, planning her next collection, when her assistant walked in holding a folder. There's a small textile company up for sale, she said. It's old, but it has good machines and a trained team. Might be worth looking at. Zuwena took the documents without much thought, until she saw the name on the first page. Malik. Her heart didn't stop, but it definitely skipped. There it was, printed in bold. Malik K Enterprises, a business she didn't even know he had started. It was now drowning in debt, struggling to survive. His factory had once produced uniforms and cheap clothing for local market, but now it was hanging by a thread, desperate to sell before it completely collapsed. Zuwena sat there in silence, holding the papers. Fate had the strangest sense of humor. Years ago, Malik left her with nothing, not even a roof over her head. And now, he was unknowingly offering her his last lifeline. She didn't say a word to her team. She didn't need revenge. She just saw a smart business opportunity. The machines were still in decent condition. The staff could be retrained. And the space, perfect for expanding Zuwena Styles. So, she made the offer, quietly, officially, professionally, no drama, no warning. Malik, desperate and out of options, accepted the deal within a week. He had no idea who was behind the purchase. To him, it was just a business transaction. But to Zuwena, it was something deeper, not revenge, but full circle peace. The factory became hers. Her logo replaced his. The walls were repainted, the machinery upgraded, and the workers trained in her signature techniques. The first dress, made in the new space, was one she designed by candlelight years ago, the same style that once sold on the beach, now stitched in a proper facility with her name above the door. When she walked through those factory halls for the first time, she didn't feel anger, she felt gratitude. Life had tested her in the hardest ways, but it had also brought her here, to this moment, standing on ground that once belonged to the man who broke her. She didn't brag about the purchase, she didn't post it online, she just kept building, quietly and powerfully, but in her heart she knew. Fate had a way of returning everything. What's meant for you will always find its way back, even if it once belonged to someone who didn't value you. Zuwena didn't buy the factory to get even. She bought it to grow, to create jobs, to expand her dream. Malik had closed a door on her once. Now she had walked right back through it, not as a woman begging to be loved, but as a CEO buying the building. Malik hadn't planned to come back, but something inside him wanted to see what had become of the place he once called his own. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was pride, or maybe deep down, he needed to feel something again. even if it was just regret. He stepped into the building expecting dust and silence, maybe even emptiness, but what he saw stopped him cold. The walls were bright and warm, not the dull grey he remembered. Beautiful fabrics hung from displays. Mannequins wore elegant designs with bold colours. There were flowers on the reception desk. A gentle scent filled the air. It didn't feel like his old office at all. It felt alive. And then he saw the sign. CEO, Zuwena Njoroge. His breath caught. He blinked, hoping it was a mistake, but it wasn't. Her name was there, clear as day, carved into the wall in gold letters. He took a few shaky steps forward. That name, the woman he had once left behind without a second thought, now owned the very business he had built and lost. Just then, the door to the office opened, and she walked out, Zuwena. Her walk was calm, her presence powerful. She wore one of her own designs, soft blue, elegant, effortless. She looked different, yet the same. There was no hate in her eyes, no sharp words, just stillness. They stood there for a moment. No one spoke. Malik opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. He couldn't find the words. His throat tightened. His pride, once so loud, was now silent. Zuwena gave him a small smile, not cold, not mocking, just graceful. "I see you found the office," she said softly. He nodded slowly. "You bought it," he finally whispered, as if saying it too loud would make it hurt more. "I did," she replied. "It was a good deal." The silence between them stretched again. Malik looked around, taking in the transformation. Everything was better now, cleaner, brighter, stronger. He saw her staff walking with purpose, heard laughter in the background. The place he had let crumble was now thriving. "Looks like you've done well," he muttered, barely able to meet her eyes. Zuwena didn't gloat. She didn't remind him of the day he left her on the street with nothing. She didn't ask if his rich wife had stayed or if the money had run out. She didn't have to. All she said was, "Life moves on. Some things fall apart so better things can be built." Malik nodded again, eyes down. He wasn't the man who left her anymore. He was just a shadow of him. And Zuwena? She was the light. He turned to leave. She didn't stop him. But as the door closed behind him, he knew what he had really lost. Not a company, not a title, but a woman who had turned pain into power and left him behind in the silence he once gave her. Malik didn't expect to see her again. Not like this. Not as the boss in a building that once belonged to him. He had thought about her over the years, but pride kept him from reaching out. Now, here he was, standing in front of the woman he once left behind, the woman he thought wouldn't survive without him. But she had done more than survive. Zuwena had bloomed. When they met in her office again the next day, the air was quiet. Malik sat across from her, eyes low, shoulders heavy. The confident man who once made big promises was gone. In his place sat someone who had tasted failure, loneliness, and the full weight of choices made too easily. Zuwena didn't speak to hurt him. She didn't remind him of the past or the pain. She looked at him and saw something else. Not an enemy, just a man who had lost his way. So she surprised everyone, including him. She offered him a job, not a high position, not a management title, just a simple role as a delivery assistant. Someone who would take her finished pieces to shops, customers, and events. It was honest work, humble work, work that he used to think was beneath him. Malik paused for a long time. He looked at her, confused. "Why?" he asked. "After everything I did, why would you offer me anything?" Zuwena looked him straight in the eyes. "Because I know what it's like to have nothing," she said. "And because grace is more powerful than revenge." He couldn't speak. The words choked in his throat. A job offer. From the woman he had abandoned when she had only love to give. A second chance. From the one he left in the dirt while chasing someone richer. But his pride, even in pieces, still clung to him. He shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "I can't." She didn't argue. She didn't push. She just nodded and stood up. "Okay," she said softly. "Then I'll walk you out." So she did. They walked down the hall in silence. He noticed how everyone greeted her with respect. The same place that once echoed with his voice now carried hers. And it was softer, stronger. At the door, she paused. "Whatever you choose next, I hope it brings you peace," she said. He wanted to say thank you, but the words stuck. All he could do was nod before walking away. Zuwena stood at the entrance for a moment, watching him leave, the way he once watched her go, holding a trash bag full of dreams. But this time, she wasn't broken. This time, She was the one who had the power to show kindness, and she did, not because he deserved it, but because she had grown far beyond the place he left her in. Revenge could never build what she had built. Only redemption could carry her this far, and she chose it, with grace, with strength, and with a heart far too big to be bitter. Zuwena's story didn't just stay in her studio. It started traveling, from village whispers to online posts, from local radio shows to TV interviews. People across Africa began talking about the woman who was once left on the street with nothing, and how she turned that pain into power. Women listened closely, not just because of what she made with her hands, but because of what she made of her life. Soon, Zuwena was being invited to speak at events, not just about fashion, but about survival, strength, and starting over. From Dakar to Dar es Salaam, she stood in front of crowds full of women, some young, some older, many carrying silent pain. And when she spoke, her voice wasn't loud, but it was strong, steady, and real. "They can leave you empty," she would say, looking right into the eyes of the women in front of her. "But they can't stop you from rebuilding, richer than ever." She didn't speak like a celebrity. She spoke like someone who knew what rock bottom felt like. She told them how she used to cry on cold nights at the bus stop, how her fingers would bleed from sewing by candlelight. She talked about betrayal, about being forgotten, about standing outside the house of someone you loved, with your whole life packed in a plastic bag. And then she talked about rising, about making something out of nothing, about turning fabric scraps into beauty, about choosing to be kind, even when the world hadn't been kind to you. In Nairobi, a girl who had just been dumped by her fiancé came to hear her speak. Afterward, she hugged Zuwena and said, "You gave me hope again." In Kigali, a single mother who sold peanuts by the roadside said, "If she can build from pain, maybe I can too." And in Lagos, a businesswoman told Zuwena, "You didn't just stitch clothes, you stitched broken hearts." Zuwena started a small program to train abandoned and struggling women in sewing and small business. She called it Stitched in Strength. She told every woman who joined, "This is not charity. This is a restart. What broke you doesn't get to define you." She watched women go from hopeless to hopeful, just like she once had. Some opened small shops. Others joined her growing fashion team. Each of them carried her message in their own way. You can start over, and this time you build for yourself. Her face was now on magazine covers. Her quotes were printed on posters. But Zuwena never acted like she was above anyone. She always said, "I'm just a tailor who refused to give up." And that's exactly who she was. A voice for the broken, the betrayed, the forgotten. A living reminder that pain doesn't get the final word. You do. Zuwena didn't just rebuild her life. She helped others believe they could rebuild theirs too. And across the continent, her story stitched itself into the hearts of thousands. Today, in villages from Kenya to Ghana, little girls twirl in bright, beautiful dresses. Each one has a tiny golden tag sewn on the inside that reads, Zuwena, stitched in strength. For many of them, it's just a label, but for their mothers, aunties, and older sisters, it's a name that carries a whole story. A story of a girl who once stood outside a mansion with her heart shattered and her belongings in a trash bag. A girl who was left by the man she loved, tossed aside for someone richer. A girl who had every reason to give up, but didn't. Instead, Zuwena built something powerful, not just a fashion empire, but a symbol of hope. She lost a man, yes. She lost her home, her comfort, her plans. But in that loss, she found her real purpose. She gained dignity, one stitch at a time. She found her destiny, thread by thread. She rose, not with noise or revenge, but with quiet fire and unshakable grace. Now, her designs are worn by celebrities and schoolgirls alike. Her words are quoted in classrooms. Her face appears in magazines. But more than all that, her name is whispered. When a woman feels too broken to go on, they say, if Zuwena did it, so can I. Because she didn't just survive heartbreak. She turned it into a crown. She didn't chase a man. She built a kingdom. And he never saw it coming. But the world did. And they've been watching her rise ever since.